subscribe. It's only a lousy $10 for the month, $100 for the year, and you get to ask questions in the mailbag. We had a great mailbag yesterday. I solved all your problems. People are now, look, just go on the street. You'll see people are happier, they're brighter. It's because I answered all your questions on the mailbag. And also, I want you to be able to hear my guest today. Peter Whittle is an author, journalist, broadcaster, and British politician. He's the founder and director of the New Culture Forum think tank and host of So What You're Saying Is, a weekly cultural and political interview show on YouTube. Many of you know that Britain has a new prime minister, Boris Johnson. I wanted to bring Peter on to talk about that and also to talk about Brexit. Peter, it's good to see you.
Very good to be here, Andrew. Thank you.
So I'm watching Brexit.
Yes.
I can't believe
so we all.
the hysteria that this has set off. Is Boris Johnson going to make a difference?
Well, at the moment, Andrew, I think the point is that there's a lot of goodwill towards him.
Okay.
Or you might say desperation. Basically, to put it in context, as you know, we've had this thing going on now for over 3 years, right? There was a vote, same year that Donald Trump got elected, was a vote, clear vote. And people have been astonished, I think, that here we are, still having European elections, still not out. So there is a will, they want him to do well. I would have to say that I'm very skeptical for a number of reasons. Okay. Not least of all because they've got a terrible record at it, this Conservative Party. And also the nature of the man as well, can one really trust him to do this? And also, it's time. It's actually a practical thing, Andrew. We're meant to be coming out by October 31st. Well, everyone's on holiday and all the rest of it, but you can work out how long that is. How are you going to get a deal together? And also, without boring all your, viewers with the way it works in the English Parliament, just on a purely, on the basis of arithmetic or math alone, it's hard to see how he could actually get anything through. So, I mean, the point is that I believe that we should leave. We should have left in the very first place, straight away on World Trade Organization rules. But what happened is that it all became about the deal and the deal we can get and all the rest of it. And it pretty much sidelined what the real issues, I think, were why people voted.
In the same way that Reagan and Thatcher had a certain kind of similarity, there does seem to be a similarity here between Brexit and Trump in the sense that the elites don't seem to be able to believe that this has happened to them.
You're quite right. I mean, I think the personal connection between them is just purely based on the fact they both got blonde hair.
The redheaded league,
But I think you absolutely put your finger on it. I mean, first of all, the liberal establishment in Britain just simply were not thinking this was going to happen. And they could have never quite come to terms with it. And so basically, they've been fighting it all the way since. So to that extent, it is like Trump. And I think that what we've seen during that period, as well, this past 3 years, is this kind of, I'd say it's an attack on people who actually voted for Brexit. I was a strong campaigner for Brexit, And so you've had the same thing, a little bit like with Hillary's deplorables.
Right.
That if you voted for Brexit, that you're dumb or that you're uneducated.
Friends might have said essentially that,
Exactly, or that you're racist. All of these things, absolutely, basically slanderous, I would say, about people. And I think that they don't understand. The liberal elites don't understand it, and this is crucial because they don't agree with the reasons that people maybe voted for Brexit, but more to the point, they actually just don't get it. So if I can explain.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The referendum campaign was largely fought on economic terms. Like, is this a good thing for us economically, or is it a bad thing?
Right.
Since then, that's carried on, right? Even though there was the vote to come out, it's carried on. It's been in entirely economic terms, like, should we have a soft Brexit or a hard Brexit? Should we have what kind of deal should we get? What they don't get and what they don't agree with, the liberal establishment, is that people voted, I'd say, largely on cultural grounds. I mean, it was about things like sovereignty. It was about things like national independence. It was about things like democracy. And also it was about things as well like immigration. But all of those things, I would say, are basically cultural things, and they just don't. Not only do they not agree with it, but they just don't understand it. So consequently, they're still not talking. They're still not understanding why people might have voted.
So can parliamentarians, MPs, can they not understand the desire for national sovereignty? I mean, do they have any purpose now besides to be talking heads? Do their votes even count?
Good point. Actually, you know, it's interesting with national sovereignty, you very rarely hear it discussed like on a program such as this, or we're doing now. And very rarely. It's entirely about what is the effect going to be on the economy? What is is this going to be a good thing or a bad thing? It's always, because the broadcast establishment in Britain, the broadcast media is hugely Remainer. They're pro-EU, hugely. And that's become very clear in the past 3 years. But it's all about that. The idea of people worrying about democracy and being, ruled from another country or whatever it is, that is not really discussed. It's still not discussed.
Wow. So talk about the culture a little bit, because one of the things here, especially if you're a conservative and you're on conservative Twitter and you see news from England or from the UK, it's always about, somebody criticized Islam and was arrested for it. Is it that bad? Is it so bad that you now cannot go on the air and say, look, maybe Islam is not compatible with Western civilization?
I think the thing is that what we have, which is different to here, I think, because of your constitution, simple as that, is that we have something now called hate crime, which actually is something to do with Brexit too. And that is where basically, if a crime is perceived to also be aggravated by prejudice or whatever it is, any of these things, criticism, then basically it can be more harshly treated. What you have now is a sort of situation where people said, after Brexit, there's been a rise in general hate in society and what have you towards minority groups and everything. The problem is with hate crime is that it is a crime which uniquely requires almost no evidence. It's extraordinary. And it also requires purely the say-so of the person, who's supposedly the victim. So as a result, and also if you report something like that, then what happens is that it goes straight onto the police statistics. So therefore there's this huge rise. In fact, when you look at it, actually probably in terms of prosecution is quite small. I would say that on the general freedom of speech thing, when it comes to freedom of speech, there is confusion now about what you can say and what you can't say. There's this general...
Which means you don't want to say it.
Well, but basically what people do is they say, they sort of make the calculation, well, I don't quite know whether this is right or wrong, so I'll just stay quiet. I think that basically you should be able to criticize any belief system, any ideology, and I would always resist any attempts to somehow or other hedge about with that.
Well, you're doing this show, which I watched, and it's really good. The New Culture Forum. So what you're saying is that based on that interview with Jordan Peterson?
It's certainly. I had a long explanation for you, Andrew. I had a long explanation. I was going to tell you what it exactly is that. This was constantly said. He was being second guessed all the time, and in fact, he got the better of the network. So that's why we call it that. Yes, I mean the point is that you have a fabulous operation here at the Daily Wire. In Britain, we want really to create an alternative, because the broadcast media, obviously the BBC, which is like the state broadcaster, but all the other networks too, they are broadly, liberal. They are meant not to be biased, but they broadly are. Certainly the BBC is. It's become very clear during the whole Brexit issue. It's become very clear. And so we want to create an alternative. That's the reason that I started the show, and I do hope people watch it. Yeah.
Well, now, if you went on, who is the fellow? Is it Tommy Robinson? Is that his name? Who keeps getting arrested for basically saying things about Islam? If you went on the BBC, and I look at the BBC, you are kind to them. You say they're lean to the left, but they look like pure communists to me. So, but if I go on the BBC, or you go on the BBC, and you say we have a problem with Islamic immigration, it is, it's a violent religion. And these are not things I necessarily believe, but I certainly think there are questions that should be asked. Are you in danger of being carried away as you walk off the...
No, I mean, I can't say that. I just think it's sort of basically you will be, the full force of argument will be put upon you.
I see.
There's no question. I mean, for example, on the issue of migration, for example, for many years, immigration was not talked about at all. And we've had, historic levels of immigration into Britain and into Europe. But it's one of those issues that people are very, very wary about talking about. That's changed slightly, although I'd say not enough. But essentially, it's not like, you're not going to be carted off, whatever, by the police. But it's more that actually there's a kind of atmosphere that's created whereby basically people are concerned about what they can and cannot say.
Right.
I think this is also very much prevalent on our campuses, just like here. You've got this sort of obsession with identity politics, which now means that people are increasingly worried about what they can, whether something's going to be offensive or not. I've been speaking to friends here, for example, and they're saying more or less exactly the same here is happening. Really, that people are worried about. Is this going to offend this group? Is it going to offend that group? Whatever. That is very similar, I think.
Yeah. So, if you had to bet £10, are you out by October 31st?
Oh dear, I very much doubt it. Okay. I very much doubt it. But I don't want to be pessimistic, you know. But
all right. Well, Peter Whittle, the show is So What You're Saying Is, and it is available on YouTube, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I take a look at it because it really is interesting. Thank you very much for coming on. I hope you come back next time you're in town.
Thank you.
Final reflection. They are having a meeting in some posh resort. Where is it? The billionaire creators of Google have invited a who's who, this is from the New York Post, of A-list names,